Not all ghosts linger in shadows. Some stay behind in the places they once called home, twisting them into prisons of terror. Tonight, I'm taking you inside Australia's most haunted house, a place so cursed, so filled with death and despair, that visitors leave shaking, whispering that something followed them back. This is the story of the Monte Cristo Homestead. And if you think ghosts are just campfire tales, by the end of this, you may never sleep peacefully again. The grand house with a bloody history. Monte Cristo Homestead rises over the small town of Junee, New South Wales. From a distance, it looks like a Victorian dream, a grand mansion of red brick built in 1885 by a wealthy cattle baron, Christopher Crawley. But its beauty hides a sinister core. From the moment it was built, the house drank blood. Servants whispered about strange accidents. A stable boy was burned alive when his bedding caught fire. A maid was pushed, or perhaps lured, off the balcony, her screams echoing through the halls before her skull cracked on the stone courtyard below. The land itself seemed cursed, and only grew worse. The death of Mrs. Crawley. Christopher Crawley died in 1910, but his wife, Elizabeth Crawley, remained in the house. After his death, she locked herself inside Monte Cristo. For 23 years, she never left the house, not even once. She draped herself in black mourning clothes and filled the rooms with crucifixes and holy relics. Locals say she became something else in those years, bitter, cruel, and deeply disturbed. Her presence lingers. Many who visit her old bedroom report being choked by unseen hands, as though the widow herself still forbids them from entering. The stable boy's agony, one of the earliest tragedies, still resonates strongest. A stable boy, just a teenager, was caught by his master after a minor mistake. As punishment, he was tied to a bed and left there. Days turned to weeks. His body rotted alive in the stables, crying for mercy that never came. Visitors report hearing his moans at night. Tourists who sleep in the guest quarters often wake to the sound of chains dragging across wooden floors. And some claim they've smelled the stench of burning flesh, even though the stables are empty. The ghosts begin to show themselves. By the mid-20th century, the house had been abandoned. Windows shattered. Dust consumed the halls. Locals avoided it, whispering that shadows moved on their own. One story tells of a young boy who dared to enter. He ran out minutes later, white as chalk, saying he'd seen a lady in black gliding down the staircase. The locals knew who it was, Elizabeth Crawley. The house was eventually bought in the 1960s by the Ryan family, who intended to restore it. But instead of a home, they inherited a nightmare. The first night of terror. The Ryans' first night inside the house set the tone. As they unpacked, they noticed lights flickering, though the power supply was steady. The air turned icy cold. Mrs. Ryan swore she saw a man standing in the doorway, tall, gaunt, with hollow eyes. But when her husband rushed over, there was no one. That night, their children screamed in their sleep, claiming a woman in black had sat on their bed, stroking their hair. It was only the beginning. The pregnant maid's death. One of the darkest stories buried in Monte Cristo's walls involved a young maid, pregnant out of wedlock. Mrs. Crawley, strict and unforgiving, shamed her relentlessly. One evening, the maid fled upstairs. Moments later, her body crashed through the balcony railing, her unborn child lost with her. Was it suicide, or did someone push her? Visitors say the balcony is still cursed. Many feel dizzy, nauseous, even pushed when standing near its edge. And countless tourists swear they've seen a pale figure fall past them, only to vanish before hitting the ground. By the 1980s, the Ryans had begun offering tours of the home, and that's when the floodgates of horror opened. Tourists reported sudden scratches on their arms, heavy footsteps following them, and whispers in the dark. One man claimed his camera was slapped out of his hands by something invisible. Another fainted after feeling what he described as cold iron hands grip his throat. Even hardened skeptics walked out pale, shaken, refusing to ever return. And yet, the worst stories were still to come. The caretaker's murder. After the Crawleys' reign, Monte Cristo sat in decay for decades. But one tragedy still stains the house in blood. A caretaker, left to look after the abandoned property in the 1940s, was brutally murdered. A young man, obsessed with dark forces, shot him dead on the front steps. When questioned, the killer simply said, "The house told me to do it." Visitors often report a man's shadow pacing near the entryway, his boots echoing on the stone. Many believe it's the caretaker, still trapped where his life was stolen. Others whisper that it might be the killer, doomed to serve the evil he obeyed. The blood of servants. Servants lived and died in fear here. One maid was forced to sleep in the servants' quarters beneath the house, where rats scurried across the dirt floor. She died giving birth, her screams ignored by her employers. To this day, guests in those lower rooms hear muffled cries of a woman in labor, echoing through the stone walls. A few even reported hearing an infant's wail before the sound is swallowed by silence. The entity in the hall. By the 1990s, paranormal investigators swarmed Monte Cristo. One team, using EVP recorders, captured a chilling voice in the main hall. When asked, "Who are you?" the reply was unmistakable. "Elizabeth." Moments later, one investigator was thrown against the wall. Cameras recorded a sudden blur of shadow, but no living thing was near him. Others report being slapped, scratched, or shoved. The most terrifying detail? It always happens in the hall, where Elizabeth Crawley once patrolled, enforcing her rules. The demon in the drawing room. Not all spirits here are human. Several psychics who entered the drawing room refused to return. They claim something non-human lurks there, a demonic entity feeding on suffering. Guests sitting inside often describe a crushing pressure on their chest, as though the air itself is alive. Some faint, others stagger out with nosebleeds. One man swore a guttural voice whispered into his ear, "You shouldn't be here." The widow's bedroom. Mrs. Crawley's bedroom is the center of terror. Her crucifixes still hang on the walls, but they seem powerless. Tourists who enter often feel watched. Some are suddenly gripped by overwhelming sadness. Others report violent nausea. One woman collapsed after claiming Elizabeth's face appeared inches from her own. Hollow eyes, mouth sewn shut. The widow may have prayed obsessively while alive, but in death, she seems to have become something darker, something that rules Monte Cristo. Modern visitors speak. Even in recent years, visitors keep reporting fresh horrors. Phones drained of battery instantly upon entering. Photos showing misty figures standing in windows. Guests waking to find handprints burned into their skin. Doors slamming in empty hallways. And yet, people keep returning, drawn to the mystery, unable to resist the homestead's pull. The house that hunts you. What makes Monte Cristo different from other haunted houses is this. The hauntings don't always stay inside. Guests often leave, only to report weeks later that nightmares follow them. Shadows in their own homes. Whispers in their bedrooms. Some even return, begging the spirits to leave them alone. Monte Cristo doesn't just trap its dead. It hunts the living. So what do you believe? Is Monte Cristo Homestead just an old house with a bloody past? Or is it a portal, a prison for restless souls, forever feeding on anyone who dares enter? For over a century, its walls have soaked in terror. And to this day, it waits for its next victim. This was the terrifying true story of Monte Cristo Homestead, Australia's most haunted house. Remember, not every house lets you leave. If you want more real horror and chilling investigations, subscribe now.